Just a reminder, before we start this video, we are currently accepting submissions, both feature films and short films, to our first ever film festival, Horrific Hope. Details are in the descriptions below. All you guys got to do is go to filmfreeway.com/Horrific Hope Film Festival, the first film festival of its kind where we are taking a festival look and horror-centric but mental health focused. We hope to see your feature there this year.
Yes, I understand. In this video, we will be discussing The Matrix Resurrections.
What's going on? Welcome to Victims and Villains. If you guys are new to our content, we create content like what you're watching right now, simply to educate and engage individuals like yourself on mental health awareness and suicide prevention. My name's Captain Nostalgia. I have the privilege of being both a writer, podcaster, among many other hats I wear. For more information about our nonprofit, podcast, and mental health resource library, check the links in the show notes below. Well, it has been almost 20 years in the making, but here we are talking about another Matrix movie. And just a side note before I share my thoughts on this, one, we have been doing all December long, we've been doing a Matrix retrospective series on the podcast. So if you guys haven't been following along or want to check out our thoughts on the Matrix, Matrix Reloaded, Matrix Resurrections, Revolution, and also the Animatrix, click the links in the show notes below. If you guys are watching this on IGTV, click the notes in our bio or just search it wherever you guys get your podcasts from. That said, also should note that the very last episode that we're going to be releasing this year is going to be on New Year's Eve, and it is going to be a full-length episode on this movie right here that I'm talking about. And of course, for that episode, we're going to get into spoilers and how it connects to the larger narrative, but for this, we're going to keep it spoiler-free. Without further ado, let's share our thoughts on Matrix Resurrections. So The Matrix Resurrections takes place 20 years after the events of Matrix Revolutions and finds Neo as in the real world, is basically a award-winning game designer. And that's all I'm going to say on that, because the less you know, the better it is. Anyways, when Neo finds himself eventually down the rabbit hole, re-entering into the Matrix, well, it is now a love story to bring Trinity back into the fold of the Matrix as well. What I really like about this, and this is going to be a super odd comparison, but I love the simplicity of this story. And this is an odd comparison to make, but stay with me.
Much better.
For Clive Barker's Hellraiser, most people know this because of the Cenobites, the weird BDSM stuff, and just the really grotesque things, but the story at its core is actually a love story. And side note, if you've never read Hellbound Heart, highly recommend it. And at its core, here, it's no longer about machines versus humans. It is just this simple love story of star-crossed lovers trying to find their way back to each other. And honestly, if you're going to do something, a sequel to something as groundbreaking as 1999's The Matrix, obviously in popular culture, the sequels haven't fared too well as is the groundbreaking foundation. And what I like about this, besides just its simplicity, is Lana Wachowski balances legacy of the entire franchise really well, but also ushering it into a new era, introducing it to a new audience with new ideas, and you're kind of getting to see the next development of the Matrix. There's just a level of natural evolution that takes place here. And that's really something that I value a lot in this film, is that when you look at Reloaded and Resurrections, there's so much of the set design, the cinematography, the character design, so much of the concepts that those films build upon from the first film that still feel grounded in 1999. It's like they never really progress forward. And what I like about this is we're bringing legacy characters back, but it feels natural because the rest of the world around them has developed. That said, I really love Keanu Reeves in this movie. Not only is he Neo, not only does he remind us about why he is the one, but his chemistry with Carrie Ann-Moss is impeccable. But even more than that, I just really found him to be some of the best comic relief in this movie. I know a lot of people are going to be asking the question, where's Lawrence Fishburne? And even some of the other stuff, some of the other legacy actors like Hugo Weaving, the way that they invite or reinvent, so to say, the those aspects of legacy with Morpheus and Agent Smith, there's a natural evolution that takes place, and it feels very modern. But it also, at the same time, it really reinvents the Matrix, because when the Matrix came out in 1999, it was cool, it was hip, it was a product of its time. And here again, it definitely feels like Lana Wachowski definitely tapped into the cool modern era of cinema while also paying homage to the foundation that has been laid before it. When you step outside that legacy, you have Yayha Abdul-Mateen II from Candyman, The Greatest Showman, Watchmen. That list just goes on and on and on. And here, I'm not gonna lie, he was probably one of the weaker parts of the movie. He's definitely underutilized, especially taking on a legacy character like Morpheus. Again, this film, when it's stripped down at its core, it is a star-crossed love story, and they honor that so extremely well. And I just kind of felt like the way that they brought him in, it feels so shoehorned that at times you're like, we are here because it almost feels like this is an obligation to fans. You can't do a Matrix movie without the core three. And to me, he just kind of felt like a waste of talent. Neil Patrick Harris is another character that's outside of the legacy. And let me just tell you, the less you know about his character, the more effective he is. And I will just say that he is probably my favorite part of this entire film. He plays such a great, I can't say it. He delivers such a great performance there. I'll say it again, less you know, the better. Fighting in this movie, the action sequences feel modern, but again, you going back, and as we've talked about in our retrospective series of the franchise, you can't, by today's standards, stuff like bullet time and slow motion and a lot of the concepts that the Matrix was so groundbreaking for, you can't do it because it just feels like another drop in the bucket. And here they do comment, there is a meta aspect of it when it comes to the fighting sequences that I really respect. I think that they didn't really reinvent the wheel, but they paid homage and made it feel modern enough, again, to where it balances that legacy and the modern aspect while also ushering it in for a modern audience. Pacing, it has a strong foundation, but pacing in this movie feels a lot like Matrix Revolutions, where it has a really strong first and third act, and then it kind of simmers down during the second act, and you're just kind of thrust into the climax of the third act. And to me, I kind of don't want to say I zoned out during the second act, but the second act didn't grab my attention as much as the first and third act. And I think the second act has really great ideas. It's just not strong execution. Kind of almost feels like Lana Wachowski felt the need to answer every burning question we had about what happens life after Matrix Revolutions. And that honestly doesn't need to be answered. Like, let it kind of just be in there. Also, I should probably note I mentioned Hellraiser as a probable influence on this story. Also, Inception, gonna throw that out there. Again, less you know, the better. Let's go ahead and get to our Rorschach rating scale before I slip into spoilers. I'm going to go ahead and give this one a solid 3.5 out of 5. I thought this one was this is the Matrix sequel that we have been waiting for since 1999. Not to say that Reloaded was bad, but Resolutions, I'm thinking of New Year's, Resurrection,
Take two.
But Revolutions is just the lowest point in the franchise, and how you come up from that is a big feat. And I think that this film does it. I think it does it in spades. And again, it's a really entertaining, it's a really great movie that has some dry spots in it, but action solid. The emotional core of it solid. It balances nostalgia so good, and also just it has enough here to, even if you've never seen any Matrix movie before, this is a great jumping on point as well. So let's go on to move on to our mental health moment. If you guys are new to Mental Health Moment, this is where we take a piece of encouragement or theme of mental health from the movie we're reviewing and expound upon it for just a few minutes. So much of this film's narrative revolves around the aspect of Neo longing to be with Trinity, these star-crossed lovers, and you just kind of see the importance of what you're willing to sacrifice for true love, or in their case, not only true love, but companionship. And that brings up a very, very important topic that we need to address, and that is the power of not only community, companionship, but choosing the right community and the right companions. Because it's really easy to go out and put yourself out there and have friends. But here's the thing, is that are those friends going to be good for your mental health, or are they going to be toxic? Because having community for community's sake is never something that we should be pursuing. There comes a point in the film where we actually get to see what life is like after the Matrix, and how everything is at peace because of what Neo was able to do in the last act of Revolutions. And one of the legacy characters, which I'm not going to spoil, turns to him and says, "Are you willing to sacrifice it all for Trinity?" And I can't help but think, how often do we look at stuff like that? How often are we willing to sacrifice our own mental health just to feel validated? I want to encourage you guys, especially now with the holiday season being almost over, the stress is almost gone, but this is the time of year where a lot of us feel really alone. And so I just want to encourage you guys to please consider our mental health resource library in the show notes below, because you do have value and you do have worth, and there's someone standing by right now, talk to you and give you that friendship. So please stay with us. Thank you guys for watching, and if I don't see you guys, happy holidays.